Alright. Time to get back to work for me. Alright. Alright. I need to get awake. Okay, so we need to put together the leaderboard screen. So it's going to be very similar to the other screen, except all these stats are users and they're different lines. So start with these buttons, perhaps, and this guy. All right. All right. Well, I need to also wake up. All right. All right. Let's start with those top buttons. All right. Well, let's make it enum here. So we need to have an enum for the types of screens. So what do we got? We got overall, winners, strikers, brawlers, zealots, and streakers. So how are we setting these? Yeah, open all these things up for edit. So how are we setting, yeah, so it's like EBS. And this will be leaderboard type. Overall. Alright, we're also going to need a few other things. We're going to need our selected name, our selected time. We'll need our intervals. I can start copy pasting a bit from our previous thing so we can kind of reuse some of the code. Interval name buttons, interval selection buttons. Yeah, we'll need those. I think we're also going to need the context button. And we'll also need the leaderboard type buttons. Alright, so we have leaderboard type, we've got the selected name, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Okay. All time, overall. We need a selected context too. So we'll get the online stuff there. Alright. So let's make our arrays. Interval context. Yeah, okay. So it should be stat context buttons. Alright, so we got that. Then we have the leaderboard type buttons. I try to organize these a little bit more. Alright, now these are the interval name buttons. And then we also have these stats. These are just stat names, so we don't have to worry too much about them. Alright, then we got members, leaderboard line container, all that sort of stuff. So, do we have these sorts of things hooked up on online click, overall winner, striker, blah blah blah? Alright, so we're going to need a few things. I guess this is going to be like a set. Stat context. And we'll also have the set leaderboard type. Then we're going to have the okay, so one of these guys right here. Alright, so set stack container, selected context is going to be this. Okay, so we should start off by setting the active buttons. What is this? This is 7. So let's generate that. Alright, so what we're going to do is for online, then we add this here. So what are we doing for these other guys? Set up interval name buttons, set up interval time buttons, and then load stats. Load stats. Loads the loads the stats for a specific interval. All right. All right, so that'll be simple there. All right, we'll set our leaderboard type here. We'll need to do the same thing where we do that. So it's pretty much similar. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, so those are all the type buttons. We need to now go snag all the type buttons by name and make sure they work. Alright, so that'll set up those. Alright, this next one is the interval type, which is like all-time, seasonal, monthly, all that sort of stuff. Alright, no, this will be if we double click on the interval itself. We need to grab that load intervals function. Alright, stack interval types, set interval type buttons. I need to implement you. Alright, getting closer. Once we have this hooked up, we'll have all of our buttons in order for active, inactive, and all that. Alright, that looks good. Alright, so load intervals. Should do this thing. But it might actually be the same. So let's take a look. Yeah, it looks like it is the same. Alright, so let's just snag the whole function again. Stat intervals updated. Alright, so this interval data equals intervals, selected interval. Set up interval name and time buttons. Okay, so we have the time buttons. I mean, we have all these buttons that actually do all this stuff. We have all that. I mean, it should work. Get name for interval. So that should snag our interval information and allow us to page through it. Well, not paging through it yet. We need these guys and all this sort of stuff set up. All right. Okay, so it looks like we're getting close. We've got that information set up. So what we need to do now is set up the actual buttons. This will be offline here. Alright, so this is leaderboard type. Well, original gamer. Good day, sir. I'm currently working on getting the leaderboard screen hooked up, which is very similar to the stat history screen. So, working through it, trying to get it done without reinventing the wheel too badly. And I'm also kind of just getting into actual work mode, which can take a while. And then we have the interval type, which is going to be these things. Because there is a lot of stats that we're tracking. Okay, so those should be all the interval types. So what do we got for these guys? Okay, this should work. I'm copying from our previous work here. I'm just double checking that it's all working properly. Alright, so if it's all time, then we're going to get the current time. Well, theoretically, Let's see if we got issues with our JavaScript, which we do. 209. Okay, so looks like those buttons are working. We need to set that text up there. And it doesn't look like our interval buttons are working. Alright, well, one thing at a time. Let's get our type. So set leaderboard type buttons. Yeah, so we'll need to set it here. And that is our leaderboard type. Okay, that should do that. Now the question is, why when we click all time, we're setting this set interval type to this guy. This is 499. If there was nothing there, Windows Defender, then don't bother me. Alright, this is the stats leaderboard screen, JS 499. What? How is that not getting set? Alright, stats leaderboard type is not showing up. So Alright, so yeah, that's working now. So we need to get our other thing. So alright, so selected name here is this. So our type is going to be seasonal. Set interval type buttons. So for all the buttons, do this. And we do not have a leaderboard type there, so that's what's going to be going on. This guy is wrong. It's not a leaderboard type, it's a stat interval. Alright. Our intervals aren't getting set though. So, what are we calling? No, we're calling load stats. So it's like stat intervals updated. That's supposed to set our basic blah in there. Alright, so we call what we should be calling is not load intervals, but load stats. Well, actually, load stats should be the one doing it. But we should also be setting up the interval time buttons, interval type buttons. Alright, that's fine, but the question is, when do we call this interval, okay, on daily clicked, set up interval time buttons. That's supposed to be called inside of set. Yeah, okay, so that's working. We've got our stats now. Alright, so that definitely looks like what we want. What does it look like in game, though? Alright, well, I'll be right back. So, we should be able to fetch our intervals properly. Let's make sure this is on local. I think it's dev login. Let's go take a look and make sure though. Yeah, it's dev login. So, once we get that running, we should be able to verify that we're getting all of our intervals properly, but we're not going to be loading any stats, so we'll need to actually go snag stats. So it might take a little while to finish compiling. And we compiled some of those enums, that's why it's getting all angry at me. Yeah. Good job, MySQL Workbench. Crashing with the best of them. Also going to need a tool in order to update the intervals for seasons. I can also manually update that, but it might be a little tedious and I might fuck it up. Whatever. Tedium is what I do best, apparently. So let's put this thing up. First time the editor plays, I think it's caching a whole bunch of textures for the streaming stuff, so it takes a little while for it to actually boot up the very first time. But we don't have any more texture popping stuff, so that's why we turned that texture streaming off. Because we're not an open world game. Lighting needs to be rebuilt. Well, there we go. So let's go to stats. What? Leaderboards? So, script error 0. What? That looks like the wrong thing. Like week 1, week 2? All time should, Oh, we have not registered for the callbacks. So let's go do that. So we're going to need stat intervals updated as an event that we listen for. Stat intervals updated is a function that we already have. Alright. So we got all time. So what did we do for the CSS for these guys? Yeah, we did this. We got rid of its just position absolute. And then we did this, and these should all be like that. Alright, let's see what it looks like. Excellent. So seasonal, monthly, we can go back in time, forward in time. Excellent. So now what we need to do is we need to actually fetch the information that we need. And let's go ahead and build the lighting for this level. So I'm not really sure how we're supposed to build the lighting for this thing. If there's all these different, times of day. It's like, yeah, let's bake in the dynamic lighting that doesn't do anything. Huh? Oh, good. Let's just wait for more fucking progress bars. My favorite part of my life. Part where I sit here and slowly die. Alright, while I'm waiting to die, maybe I should do a few things to make this work. So, right now, the issue is we do load intervals. Load intervals calls load stat intervals for time, which calls stat intervals updated, which calls load stats. And load stats is doing about jack shit right now. So the question is, what are we actually going to be grabbing? Well, we're fetching the stats history. No, we're calling get. Alright, it's get interval stat leaderboard. So we're going to pass the interval, the stat context, the stat names, the top number, include users, and include self. Alright, so these are the leaderboards for the stat names. Okay, so we're going to need the actual things that we sort on. So we're going to want the get sort stat. And this is going to be based on the leaderboard type. Alright, so let's take a look at our documentation for this, because I did write this down. Okay, so overall is going to be based on our score. Our strikers is going to be based on goals. Brawlers is going to be based on accuracy. That's not a very good one. Winners might also be our win score. Why don't we just do it by score for now? Brawlers, let's just do it by accuracy. We'll probably need like a brawl score, to be honest. Zealots, we're going to have it on matches played. Streakers is going to be based on win streak. So win row. Overall, winners, it's not based on score, it's based on wins. And overall is just going to be score. Okay, so we need the sort stat. What else are we going to need? The interval ID. Alright, we're going to need the stat context. Is it the selected name? Yeah, no. Selected context. The top number. Let's go throw that off in the globals. Include users and include self. We're not going to include any extra users. Looks like we got everything. Stat names is going to be the only thing there, but we already have that. Sort stat, so we need to actually go write the function, which will then call all this trash. So I changed the material instances. I most certainly did not. Well, if it's required, we'll do it. Okay, so we need to go to our game utils and write this function. So this is going to be load stat leaderboard for interval. And we already know who we are, so that's fine. So we'll just do it like that.